Imagine for a moment the sound of sirens piercing the silence of Tel Aviv. Now multiply that by days, weeks. This is what Israel is experiencing now, a storm of attacks from different fronts, orchestrated by invisible forces, undefined by the eyes of the mainstream media. These events are not just military operations, but part of a global plot involving Iran, Iran allies, biblical prophecy, advanced military technology, and the manipulation of the global narrative. It all started with a missile launched from Yemen, brought to light by the Houthi militia, which, aided by Iran, named the weapon Palestine-2. It was a name with a clear intention. This wasn't just another attack. It was a political and spiritual manifesto, a message to the world. International headlines, however, barely mentioned the missile's name, focusing instead on supposed cosmetic damage or routine alerts. But you deserve to know the truth, dear viewer. And it is this hidden truth, invisible to the general public, that this channel reveals. Palestine-2 was just the first cog in a silent machine. Satellites captured suspicious movements, ballistic missiles being transported, Iranian bases reactivated, command systems reinvigorated. In the skies over Israel, the defense intercepted the projectile, but the targets weren't just physical. These actions increase psychological pressure on the population, test the Iron Dome shield, and create international tension, forcing military and media responses. In the response, Israel retaliated with equal speed. Yemeni ports were attacked, ships under Houthi control were destroyed, like the Galaxy Leader. All of this was exposed as surgical action against terrorist cells. But there's more. The world is now witnessing a hybrid war, physical, digital, and spiritual. Missile systems with Iranian, North Korean technology, Russian and Chinese intelligence support, all intertwined in a coordinated plan. At the same time, mainstream media outlets avoid revealing these connections or shape the narrative, portraying Israel as the aggressor while downplaying the Iranian-motivated attacks. But there's something even more disturbing. Decades-old biblical prophecies are being fulfilled before our eyes. Chapters like Ezekiel 38:39, which describe a prophetic siege led by nations like Persia, now Iran, Russia, China, Turkey, Ethiopia, and others, are materializing into real alliances on the ground. It's as if the spiritual chessboard is moving toward a global collapse. Even theological sectors that dismissed end-times theories are now rethinking their positions, given the evidence that there's more to this than just politics. Meanwhile, the public narrative is calibrated to keep the masses distracted. Sophisticated social media platforms bombard superficial information, memes, short videos, clickbait that divert attention from the underlying facts. The mainstream media alternates between the Gaza drama, French support for Israel, and the tension in Syria, as if obscuring from the shadows the real developments: the deployment of US naval fleets in the Gulf, Israel preparing secret counterweapons, Middle Eastern diplomats negotiating with Russia and China to contain the escalation. There are rumors that underground hydrofoil bases in the United Arab Emirates are already equipped to house Western anti-aircraft systems, indicating that the conflict could spread rapidly. This isn't just war, it's a global, spiritual, and geopolitical strategic realignment. And just when you think you've seen it all, another fact emerges. The religious debate over the rebuilding of the Third Temple in Jerusalem is ongoing, with discrete permissions being sought. And then we ask ourselves, coincidence or prophetic coincidence? Because according to Revelation, the Temple of Israel will be a spiritual epicenter in the end times, and it simply doesn't appear by chance now in this explosive scenario. It's not just the next explosion or the next military operation or the next headline. It's a series of synchronized movements that are changing the world. If you've made it this far, ask yourself, am I just seeing the surface, or am I seeing what's unfolding behind the scenes? You might be wondering, If all this is already happening before our eyes, why does it still seem like so few are noticing? The answer is simple. We are living in the age of programmed distraction. While sirens blare in Tel Aviv, missiles are launched from Yemen, and Israel prepares for a new phase of war. The masses are occupied with internal political scandals, social media rife with superficiality, and a media that chooses what to show and what to hide. But something much larger is afoot. Recent intelligence reports indicate that armed Hezbollah cells have been reactivated along Israel's northern border, and there are Syrian troop movements in the Golan Heights. These aren't just provocations, they're strategic deployments, the kind of movements that precede a military coalition. And it's not just coordination between regional militias. Mossad sources indicate that there is joint training between Iranian Revolutionary Guard agents and Hezbollah special forces, with technical support from China. That's right, the invisible war has already crossed continents. Meanwhile, the skies over the Middle East are more congested than ever. Reconnaissance drones, unidentified warplanes, high-altitude communication balloons, all operating silently, off-camera. Hourly, systems like Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow 3 are tested by threats that increase in frequency and precision. What was once considered defensible is now under threat, and Israel knows this. Therefore, the country has accelerated the development of electromagnetic pulse weapons and cyber warfare technologies that can neutralize entire enemy communications networks. But the question remains, how long will it be possible to contain this avalanche? The Palestine-2 Missile attack was just the beginning. It triggered a silent wave of diplomatic and military decisions that are rewriting the map of alliances in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, while still officially neutral, has already signaled concern about the rise of Iranian influence in the Arabian Peninsula. The United Arab Emirates is increasing defense spending, and Egypt has quietly begun moving anti-aircraft defense units to Sinai. These details, which rarely make the headlines, are the true signs that the region is about to explode. And then comes the question that haunts scholars and analysts. Are we living in the prelude to a world war? Perhaps not in the traditional mold, tanks crossing borders and troops occupying capitals, but rather a hybrid war, where information is the weapon, faith is the battlefield, and geopolitics is the board game. All of this is already happening. From a spiritual perspective, the connections become even more intense. In Revelation 16, we see references to evil spirits coming out to gather the kings of the earth for the battle of the great day. Many scholars identify this battle as Armageddon, an event directly involving Israel, the nations of the East, and global spiritual manipulation. What we see today are alliances taking shape, prophecies being fulfilled in real time, and a world system being prepared for collapse, not just economic or military, but moral, spiritual, and civilizational. And there's another little discussed but absolutely critical element: international public opinion. From the Hamas attacks in October to the recent ballistic missile launches, social media has been flooded with well-coordinated disinformation campaigns, manipulated hashtags, decontextualized images, influencers paid by governments to shape narratives. There's a war raging over what you should think, how you should view Israel, how you should position yourself, and those who control this narrative hold the power to justify or condemn future actions, including genocides disguised as liberation. Israel knows this. That's why the government has invested heavily in public diplomacy, alternative communication channels, and digital counterintelligence. But it's an unequal battle. The global machine of manipulation is much larger, and that's why channels like this exist, to show you what no one else wants you to see. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, debate is growing about Jerusalem's role today. The city has been the scene of prayers, confrontations, and tents. Diplomatic visits, Sources indicate that the Israeli government is in the planning stages to delimit new security zones around the Temple Mount. This reignites the discussion about the rebuilding of the Third Temple, an event of enormous prophetic importance. According to 2 Thessalonians 2, this temple will be the place where the man of sin, the Antichrist, will manifest himself, deceiving the nations. Now stop and think. Are the foundations of this spiritual and physical temple already being laid behind the scenes, while the world looks at the missiles and ignores the real focus? In this scenario, every attack, every military response, every diplomatic pronouncement is more than a political action. It's part of a script, a very old script, written in texts that many have abandoned or mocked, but which today take on new meaning. The prophetic clock is ticking, and the Middle East is the main stage. There's no denying it anymore. The war between Israel and Iran has gone beyond the battlefield. It's in schools, churches, the media, and even inside your home. Everything you see and hear now passes through filters that attempt to hide the truth, distort the facts, and discredit those who monitor. But those who have eyes to see are seeing. If you've made it this far, I'd like to extend an invitation. Comment below, "I see the signs," or "I am awake to the truth." These words show that you are part of a group that does not allow itself to be deceived, that remains vigilant, and that does not bow to manipulation. And if you think you've seen it all, wait for the next video. What comes next may completely change your perspective on what's really happening in the world.